Well, we have pieces here, we have pieces there, we've got pieces hanging here, over there, and a rain day happening. So that means I probably have today only to be in the shop. Let's see how many of these pieces we can get thrown onto the Farmall H. And welcome back, everyone. First, a little bit of housekeeping in the paint department. I haven't done any wet sanding on any of the tins yet to get rid of that orange peel. I'm not happy with the finish, but I'm still waffling if I should just leave it alone or open that can of worms once again. This is all of the red that I have left, and it's barely enough to do a light respray of all the tins. I did a deep dive into trying to source some more of this Napa Martin Senor PCC 135IH. It's out of stock everywhere that I can source it from. I did learn, though, that Martin Senor is a subsidiary of Sherwin-Williams, and the Sherwin-Williams FPC 135IH is the same stuff. FPC stands for the factory packaged color. All Sherwin-Williams does is just put a different label on these cans and they sell it through Napa. But the Sherwin-Williams blend is also out of stock just about everywhere except for this one online hardware outlet place in Florida, and I did a deep dive into them. It turns out they just list everything on their website as being in stock, and they let you place the online order, take your money, and then we figure out if it's in stock or not, and good luck getting a refund. That's not worth the gamble to me either. So I can't source any more of this red. I barely have enough to do a respray. I should probably just leave those tins alone and try to convince myself that it's fine. We move on. Let's start with the distributor. This is the offset slot drive tang, so we just need to line that in. Sometimes takes a few attempts, or it just falls in just like that. Living right today, we got lucky. And with these vertical Delcos, utilize this slot right here, okay? It allows that to pivot out or in. You want to have that distributor canted as far into the engine block as possible. Otherwise, when you put the hood on, the hood curl is going to come around and come awfully close to the top of that distributor cap. You can get all the timing adjustment you need just by pivoting the distributor in this base. You don't need these slots over here. So it's one little tip for setting these up, avoiding problems later. Rotor on. Okay. That should be in register with number 1, the way I have the engine set. So cap goes on like that. That should be number 1. Yeah, we're close enough that we should be making some noise anyhow. So we'll trace that. Yep, it goes over to number 1 right there. Good to lock it down. Ignition coil hangs on the back of the drive. Black-white wire lead from distributor attaches to coil negative terminal, and the main coil output wire that feeds the distributor cap just plugs right in the top. Let's do the starter next. Wow. Good paint, right? There we go. That really dried on there. And this was the perfect time to put the ground cable on because it has to go beneath that starter bolt anyhow. So the last detail is the new replacement or repro Delco Remy ID tag that we stamped for this. I left it off because it was going to be easiest to pop it on right now. We've got the new rivets for it, so I might start one in the tag. All right, my fat fingers don't always perform as they should when we're doing this fine detail type work. Be very, very careful that you don't hammer the tag. Sometimes using a punch instead of just hammering directly upon it is an even better idea, but we got by. I've mentioned this before, but it keeps coming up in the comment section. People wondering if the starter and generator should not have been black instead of red. I always refer back to this book right here. I've talked about it a lot, but Farmall Letter Series Tractors Originality Guide by Guy Fay and Andy Crochar. This is my go-to for all things detail-oriented for Letter Series tractor restorations. And they have a pretty good chapter in here about how the factory painted these tractors. It's definitely worth checking out if you haven't already got the book. And they indeed left the factory with red starters, red generators, because they would mask off tags, they would mask off light lenses, they would mask off like the distributor cap and the plug wires, but everything else was just fogged red. But in subsequent years, the electrical rebuilders would typically put their own coat of black paint on starters and on generators as they rebuilt them. So these tractors lived a lot more years with black starters and black generators than with red. So it really boils down to preference. It just became the norm to see all your electrical equipment to be painted black on these. So whether it's red or black, either way really isn't wrong. We might as well do the carburetor next. And when I paint these, I just prefer to try to keep all the brass pieces brass. I think it adds just enough color contrast that it looks good. But for items like this brass needle here that have a spring, steel spring that go around them, the best way I've found to keep that brass is to put the old one in the carburetor for the painting with the spring on it. That way you can take the old needle out. Now you have a red painted spring that you can put on the new brass needle, and then that will thread in. And you get an excellent color contrast between that red painted spring and that clean brass needle. Don't forget your paper gasket right here on the throttle linkage. So we've got the peg, has to go in the slot. We've covered this before. Anyone that's done it knows exactly what I'm talking about. So that's the thing that I like to start first. All right, get those lined up. Yep. Now I'll throw the gasket up on top. We'll see if we can get that carburetor lined in. All right, don't try to talk me out of it. Decision's been made. We're going with the finish. We're putting this thing together. I've come to the conclusion that I don't have the paint to respray this anyway. So if I ever do find more of that paint, I will take all these tins back off, we'll take them down to bare metal and start over. If I don't have the paint, I'm leaving it as it is. I think I'm really gonna make a larger mess trying to make it better than if I just leave it the way it is. Oh, new rubber insulators beneath the fuel tank as well. Fuel line. All right, connections all made at the carburetor, fuel line. Have our vibration spiral in there, new sediment bowl at the fuel tank, choke rod, all the way down as well. Carburetor inlet pipe next. These can sometimes be a trick, so I'll start it on the top first, and then we'll see if we can't walk it onto that carburetor. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Let's do more plumbing. Oil line that feeds the pressure gauge. I remember there being a certain way to put this in, but it's been just long enough. Well, 8 months, 2 eye surgeries, all kinds of other things going on. I've thought about a lot of other things since then. All right, try going down there first and then we go over. Yeah, I think that's what we had to do. Yep, okay. Start in on the bottom. Yep, good there. Line it in up top. Yep, tighten the fittings. We're good to go. Here is another tube, and this one looks awfully bent and mangled up, but it actually fits very well. It's the radiator overflow tube. Connects to the upper port here, and any excess that comes out will go down this tube, and it directs it down to the bolster area so that it doesn't get in the fan and blow back on the engine. This will go in. You just have to hit all the marks just right. So we start with it this way. Feed it behind that top brace. Get the tail end to come out down here. Drop it and then give it a turn. And then it should pretty much sit. See, we got to be, yep, it'll sit in just like that. So I'll get this rubber hose put on at the top and we'll move on. Take note, everybody, these 2 long rods that I've been walking into and standing next to for, I don't know, a year now. Steering rod comes down. This is also one of the main reasons why I've kept this tree loose for so long. Because you have to cant this back to get the steering shaft in. We'll be careful not to wreck the paint. At least we'll be as gentle on it as we can be. So get that just a little bit further than it needs to be. Okay. All right, we should be able to get something done here. There we go. Another reason too, I had to wait for putting the steering shaft on is I had to get the fuel tank in place first. Hydraulic lift all control rod up next. Just have to get past that new aftermarket or repro tension spring that we put on this support lever. This one had never had a good spring in it. It had always been broken. All right, that should be the hold position. There, put a cotter pin down here. Throttle rod up next. Another one of those pieces that can finally go in now that the tank is in place. Get that to line in. Yeah, there we go. Didn't think this through. Trying it all one-handed, you know, running that camera. And finally, the steering wheel. Last bit of work to wrap up the steering. I've packed the top of the sector with the custom blend of grease and gear oil. We covered all that in the Farmall Super M Restoration Series playlist on the channel. If you want to go back and relive all that, you can. We don't need to dive back into it today. So get this cover put on. We're just about done. For today, anyhow. We'll throw the grill on and then call it a day. So we'll wrap the episode with the new Repro radiator cap. Has the wing on it, just like the factory originals. And that's all we have time for today. But we were able to add a lot of pieces to the tractor that have just been waiting mainly for that piece to find its way home. And then we could start filling in all around it. So operator station, pretty much complete. Grill, fuel tank, hood will remain off until after we do the first start. We're fixing to do a first start here pretty soon. We didn't do any of the electrical harness or the generator today. We've covered the electrical harness in great detail in other episodes, so I think I can just add all that off camera. We don't need to go there again, but otherwise it's coming together. And look at this. For the first time in I don't know how long, I can stand right here and not have to worry about bumping into things. I thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And been busy summer outside. As soon as we get another rain day or some more time, we'll be back in here trying to get this H finished up. So I hope to see y'all back then. Thanks again, everybody.